Welcome to class today, geometry students. This Tuesday morning, hope you guys are doing well and hope you're ready to learn some math. Yesterday you were just given a homework assignment. You had notes last Friday and a quiz last Friday. And then yesterday you just worked on homework. I did pick the assignments up. I noticed some of you did it. Some of you finished it yesterday and some of you did not. So let me quickly go through and make some announcements here. First of all, there'll be no test or quiz this week. It's a short week, so enjoy your 4-day weekend. Tomorrow, Wednesday, will be your last day of school, so no test or quiz this week. You need to turn in yesterday's homework. Now, that's the assignment I gave you yesterday on Monday, and you were supposed to work on it the entire class period. However, you didn't have to turn it in. Now, 3 of you did. Jake, you did not turn yours in, so please turn yours in now. And by the way, Jake, there's nothing wrong with that. It was not due until today, but 3 of you did turn yours in. And I believe Mr. Harmon's passed those back to you. And Jake, please turn yours in now at this time. Quizzes. Jake, quiz by tomorrow. You can take it today, Tuesday, or you can take it tomorrow by Wednesday. But please make sure your makeup quiz is taken by Wednesday. Okay, please get out your notebooks, your books, calculators, pens, pencils, whatever you use to take notes with. And let's go ahead and get started. Have a great class period today and try to learn some geometry. We're looking today at a topic called parallel lines and transversals. Parallel lines and transversals. I do encourage you guys to write the date down. So if you do that, the date today is the 24th, 9/24/13. And once again, the heading today is Parallel Lines and Transversals, Lesson 3-5. Now, we are going to be studying today 4 different characteristics of angles. Now, what angles am I talking about? Well, characteristics of angles that are formed by 2 parallel lines and a transversal. Let me read that again. We are going to be studying today 4 different characteristics of angles, that are formed by 2 parallel lines and a transversal. Now, let me quickly show you what I'm talking about here. What I mean by that is we're going to have 2 lines that are parallel, like these 2 lines, and then cut by a transversal. And you have an angle here, 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 here. And we're going to talk about those angles today. Angles that are formed by 2 parallel lines cut by a transversal. Now, all geometry books teach these 4 principles by giving the students 4 theorems. And this book also does this. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it a little easier for you guys, okay? So I'm not going to give you 4 theorems. I'm going to make it a little easier when it comes to learning these 4 principles about these angles. I'm going to simply list out the 4 principles for you, okay? Now, you'll be quizzed and tested on these, so you're going to have to learn them, but I'm just going to list them out for you. And I think it'll be a lot easier for you to learn them this way instead of learning them in theorem form. Now, I won't do this very often, but I am with these 4 principles, okay? So here we go. Please take some really good notes. If 2 parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then these 4 principles are true. Now, before I list out these 4 principles, I want you to see a couple things. You must have how many lines? 2. They must be what type of lines? Parallel. And those 2 lines must be cut or intersected by a what? Transversal. If you don't have these 3 things, then you cannot use these 4 principles that I'm about ready to give you. You must have 2 lines. Those 2 lines must be parallel. And those 2 lines must be cut by a transversal, okay? If you don't have those 3 things, then do not use these 4 principles. But if 2 parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate exterior angles are congruent. Corresponding angles are congruent. Consecutive interior angles, or as this book calls them, same side interior angles, are not congruent. They are supplementary. They are supplementary, not congruent. So now you see why during the last 2 class periods I've really hammered home these terms: alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, corresponding angles, and consecutive interior angles. I've really felt like it was very important for you guys to know these terms. Now I'm going to try to give you some pictures here. You don't have to write these down. You can just watch or whatever. But let's just pretend these two lines are parallel and cut by a transversal. Alternate interior angles would be this angle here is congruent to this angle here, and this angle here is congruent to this angle here, because they're alternate interior angles. Alternate exterior angles. Okay, here's my parallel lines cut by a transversal. This angle here would be congruent to this angle here. Actually, I can draw that a little better. This angle here would be congruent to this angle here, and this angle here would be congruent to this angle here. Alternate exterior angles. Corresponding angles are congruent, okay? That would simply mean this. It would mean this angle is congruent to this angle. This angle is congruent to this angle, and the same thing over here on this side, because those are corresponding angles, okay? Consecutive interior angles are supplementary. Okay, here's your parallel lines cut by a transversal. And you're welcome to have written down all these examples that I've given, but you don't have to. Well, this angle here, we're going to call it angle 1, and this angle here, angle 2. The measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 would equal 180 degrees. If this is 3, angle 3 and angle 4, those are same side interior angles or consecutive interior angles. You would say the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees, because those are consecutive interior angles. I hope that's helped a little bit. But let's go ahead and work on them to give you some closure. We have about, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 problems we're going to work on, and then I'll give the homework to you. I think you might be able to get some of the homework started in class today. Your homework is due tomorrow. Go ahead and copy this in your notes, please. Draw 2 lines that are parallel. Notice the arrows right here, 1 arrow and 1 arrow. That means the lines are parallel. Go ahead and copy this problem in your notes, and then draw a transversal. This angle up here is 60 degrees. This is angle 6. I want us to find the measure of angle 6. So copy this in your notes. I do go fast on purpose. You're going to have to pause the video a lot, and that's fine. And so feel free to do that if you need to. Now, first of all, in order to use these 4 principles, I have to have 2 parallel lines, and I have that. They have to be cut by a transversal. I have that. So let's decide what is the name of these 2 angles. Well, I have an angle here above the parallel line and an angle here above the black parallel line. Both of these angles are to the right of the transversal. When that happens, we call these 2 angles corresponding angles. Well, what did we know about corresponding angles? They are congruent. And that was principle number, I forget what number it was. I won't go back to these a whole lot, but it was principle number 3. Principle number 3, corresponding angles are congruent. So if they're corresponding angles, then the measure of angle 6 has to be 60 degrees, because this angle up here was 60, so this angle right here also has to be 60 degrees. All right? Go ahead and copy this problem in your notes, please. Go ahead and copy this problem in your notes. I want us to find what x equals. We're going to find what x equals, okay? Now, notice we have 2 parallel lines, and they're cut by a transversal, so we can use our 4 principles. Let's see what the names of these angles are. First of all, notice these 2 angles here and these 2 angles here are in between the 2 parallel lines, so we know they're interior angles. They're on the inside. Also, we notice one angle is on the right of the transversal, and this angle is on the left of the transversal. So we have alternate interior angles. Now, if you'll look at principle number 1 that I gave you, principle number 1 says that alternate interior angles are congruent. So if this angle is 35 degrees, then this angle here must also be 35 degrees. It's really not that hard, students, if you just use the principles and apply them. And if you learned these terms yesterday and Friday like you were supposed to, then you should be doing pretty well on this. All right, please copy this assignment or copy this problem in your notes, please. Two parallel lines going up and down, then one transversal going horizontal. Now, if this is something you struggle with, which if you do, that's totally fine, then it might help you to turn the paper or turn the test if you're taking a test, or turn the book if you need to, so that the object looks like this. If that helps you, feel free to do that. I have no problem whatsoever. In fact, having done that, let's very quickly look at what we have here, okay? And I'll flip it back around in a second. But notice this angle here is above the black line, and these two angles are below the black line, so we know they're exterior angles. So we know we have exterior angles for sure. And then notice 75 degrees and angle number 2 right here, I'm circling it. They're alternate. They're on two different sides of the transversal. 75 degrees is on the left, and angle 2 is on the right. So they're alternate interior angles. So if you'll look at principle number 2, I believe it was, principle number 2 that I gave you in your notes, it stated alternate exterior angles are congruent. So the measure of angle 2 has to be 75 degrees, because this angle here and this angle here are alternate interior angles. Now, we're still missing angle number 1. We have to find the measure of angle number 1. Well, let me help you do that for a second, okay? Is not this a straight line? Sure it is. And do not we have one line coming off of that straight line? Sure. So remember, these two angles added together have to be supplementary. Anytime you have a straight line with a line coming off of it, this angle here and this angle here have to add up to 180 degrees. So 1 and 2 have to add up to 180. Now you know angle 2, we already know that's 75 degrees. So really, I can put 75 degrees. So in order to find the measure of angle 1, I simply take 180, subtract out 75 degrees, and I'm left with 105 degrees. So the measure of angle 1 is 105 degrees. All right, let's try another problem. Please copy this in your notes. Two parallel lines cut by a transversal. I want us to find the measure of angle 5. The measure of angle 5. Now, first of all, let's decide what these two angles are. Notice I do have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, and I have an angle here and an angle here. Now they are interior angles, they're on the inside, and notice they're both on the same side. So the book calls these same side interior angles. I call them consecutive interior angles. Either way, it's principle number 4 in your notes, and it says that these two angles are not congruent, they're supplementary. So if this is 80 right here, then 5 right here would have to be, the measure of angle 5 would have to be 100 degrees, because they have to add up to 180. In other words, you would take 180 and you would subtract out this angle right here, which is 80 degrees, and you would be left with 100 degrees. So the measure of angle 5 equals 100 degrees. Pretty cool. All right, go ahead and copy this in your notes. Now we're going to throw some algebra at you. I think we have 3 problems left to give you a little closure. Yep, 3 problems left, and then we'll be finished with your notes, and I would like to encourage you to go ahead and get started with your homework. That would be a very, very smart thing to do. Okay, first of all, I have 2 parallel lines cut by a transversal. If it helps you to just a little turn this thing, then feel free to do that. I like to do it. I think it helps you see things a little better. So there's my 2 parallel lines going across. There we go. So there's my 2 parallel lines right here cut by a transversal. Now let's see. Here's a parallel line and here's a parallel line. Notice how this angle is below this parallel line. This angle is above it. So they're interior. Both of these angles are interior angles. They're on the inside. And notice how 120 is on the left of the transversal and x plus 35 is on the right. So they're on different sides. Well, guys, we call this consecutive interior angles. And if you'll look at principle number 1 that I gave you, it says consecutive interior angles are congruent. So I know the angle that's 120 degrees equals x plus 35. They're equal. And now simply subtract 35 from both sides, and you would be left with 85. So x equals 85. x equals 85. All right? Okay, let's continue on. Go ahead and copy this problem in your notes, please. Now here's my two parallel lines cut by a transversal. I know this is not easy to see, but that's a 78 right there, 78 degrees. And we want to solve for x once again. We're going to solve for x. Now, again, if this helps you fine. If not, don't worry about it. I think it's the best way to do it. There we go. And so we have two parallel lines cut by a transversal. Now, this is interior and this is interior. They're both on the inside of the two parallel lines. And notice they're both on the same side. So we call these two angles same side interior angles or consecutive interior angles. And they are not congruent. They're supplementary. So I take one angle, which is 78, and I add to it the other angle, which is x minus 2. And when I add these two angles together, I get 180 degrees. Isn't that true? Sure it is. If the two angles are supplementary and I add them together, they equal 180. Now, I have 78 minus 2, so x plus 76 equals 180. Where did I get 76? Well, a positive 78 and a negative 2. I combine my like terms, and I'm left with positive 76. Now, bring the 76 over and make it a negative 76, and that leaves you with 104. 104. So x equals 104. Not too bad. Now let's take a look at our last problem of the class period. Again, you do what helps you. I love to teach things a certain way. I like to be consistent, so I'm going to grab this diagram and turn it so my parallel lines are running left to right. I do believe that helps sometimes. There we go. Now I have two parallel lines. Actually, I forgot to mark them parallel, and they are parallel, so go ahead and copy this in your notes and go ahead and put arrows on each line. So I have two parallel lines cut by a transversal. Now I'm trying to solve for x. This is going to be really difficult to do. So I hope you'll pay attention to me and listen, because this is not going to be easy, okay? This is an interior angle, and this is an exterior angle. So I'm thinking here, if this is an interior angle and this is an exterior, I really don't know anything about interior and exterior angles being mixed together. But what I do know is this. Now think about this for a second, students. I do know that a straight line like this with a line coming off of it means this angle here and this angle here are supplementary. They have to add up to 180. Now come on, think about that for a second. So if this is 90, then wouldn't this have to be 90 also? I mean, think about it. Anytime you have a line with another line coming off of it, these two angles are supplementary, always. So if this is 90 degrees here, then this one right here has to be 90 also, because 90 plus 90 is 180. So this angle here is 90. Now why did that matter? Because now look what I have. I have this angle here and this angle here. And what are they called? They're on the interior. They're on opposite sides of the transversal, so they're called alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. And we know from principle number 1 in your notes today, alternate interior angles are congruent. So I can take the one angle, which is 2x plus 10, and I can set it equal to the other angle, which is 90 degrees. Now we'll subtract 10 from both sides. Bring the 10 over, make it negative, leaves you with 80, and now divide by 2, and x equals 40. So what we're doing is we're applying these four principles over and over and over in different ways. And that's what your homework's going to do for you also, okay? So go ahead and copy your homework down. Let's see how many problems we have. We have 4 problems there, 3 problems there, that's 7. And then 19 through 37 would be 18, 10, 9, about 16 problems. So not a very large assignment. I think you'll finish it pretty quickly. But go ahead and copy this down, page 132, numbers 9 through 12, numbers 16 through 18, numbers 19 through 37 odd, and go ahead and skip number 25. It's not really worth doing. And then, again, don't forget Jake quiz by today or tomorrow at the latest. So please don't forget that. All right. If you need help with the homework, you know it would be Geometry 3.4 homework would be the homework video. And go ahead and start your homework. If the bell's not rung, I want you to go ahead and start your homework right now and work on that. And if you get stuck, feel free to use the homework video to help you.